Good afternoon, my students again. This is Mr. Tamuku again, the tutor for your second module, English Module 2, DES ENG22, the content-based contact session for 2019 for both May, August, and November exams. My contact details are appearing on the screen, and the email address still remains the same. Okay. Now, it is not a very long discussion or recording. This recording highlights only a few things you will expect in your exam for May, August, and November. Now let's go through the content quickly. We only have to discuss 5 topics. The types of sentences, numerals, parts of speech, punctuations, active and passive voice, simile and metaphor, figures of speech. Now, for DES ENG21, Module 1, you will notice that in the recording, there are parts of speech, the same content, and then active and passive voice, the same content, simile and metaphor, the same as well. Now, the only differences in the two modules, they are the types of sentences, numerals, and maybe, just maybe, punctuations. But all in all, they are all less the same. Okay, now let's start with the types of sentences now. There are 3 types of sentences. Simple. A sentence can be simple, compound, or complex. Now, a simple sentence consists only of one clause, just one. For example, Joe waited for the train. So we only have Joe and waited, and train as the subject, the object. Joe waited for the train. Joe, noun, waited, verb, train, object. I looked for Mary. Ethan and Eliana took the bus. Don't get confused with the word and. Ethan and Eliana, they are still one subject. Ethan and Eliana. Even if we say Ethan took the bus, still one subject. Ethan and Eliana took the bus. So they still remain one subject. So a simple sentence consists of one clause. Now, a compound sentence now consists of 2 or more independent clauses. Now, the word independent means one clause can stand or can make sense on its own, and another one can also make sense on its own. In other words, the 2 independent clauses exist separately. They don't depend on one another to make sense. So if you have 2 independent clauses in one sentence, that is called a compound sentence. I'll put more examples for you here. This house is too expensive and small. I drank some water for I was thirsty. He was tired and he had a headache. She doesn't drink milk, nor does she eat butter. So those are examples of compound sentences. Then we have complex sentences. A complex sentence has at least one independent clause plus at least one dependent clause. Now it means the other clause depends on the first one. For example, though Michelle prefers watching romantic films, he rented the latest spy thriller. So he rented the latest spy thriller depends on though Michelle prefers watching romantic films. Because my porridge was very cold, I heated it in the microwave. So the last one depends on the other one. Because the porridge is cold, it was heated in the microwave. So the last one depends on the other one. Dependent and independent clauses. After the storm hit the town, trees lay broken in the streets. Now, because there was a storm, there were a lot of trees laying down in the street. Now, the storm is the cause of the trees laying down in the street. So that is a independent clause now. So one more time, a simple sentence consists of one clause, just one clause, simple. And then compound two clauses which are all independent, separate. They work independently on their own. And then a complex sentence has at least one independent clause. But a complex sentence can have more than one independent clause. It says here at least one. But it can also have more than one independent clauses. Okay, then numerals. These ones are just simple. In the English language, we all know we deposit money in banks, we write money in words and in numbers. Numerals have to do with writing numbers in words and numbers in words, just vice versa. By definition, a numeral is a figure or a group of figures or symbols representing a number. It can be a word expressing a number or numbers expressing words. When you write digits in numbers, it's numerals. When you write numbers in digits, it's numerals. For example, 23 in words and then 23 in digits. So those are numerals. Now in the exam, you expect there can be a number of words or figures, and then you convert them either to figures or numbers or vice versa. So those are expectations in the content numerals. Okay. Then punctuations. Now in the English language, we have 14 punctuation marks. Now you have to know the functions of all these punctuation marks. Now by definition it says here, these are marks such as the full stop, comma, or question mark used in writing to separate sentences and their elements and to clarify meaning, correct reading of a text, whether read silently or aloud. Now, I was teaching in class the other day. I read a textbook on punctuation. It says punctuations are the road signs of writing. So if you read a book, the punctuations will guide you. Whether to read aloud, whether to read softly, whether to be calm, whether to be emotional, the punctuations will guide you. It's like they are road signs, stop sign. You know when you drive a car, you respect all the road signs. Now the 14 punctuation marks include the full stop, comma, question mark, exclamation marks, the semicolon, the colon, the dash, hyphen, the parentheses, brackets, and all those up to ellipses. There must be 14 of them. Only in the English language. We don't know how many punctuations are there in Spanish, in French, in Portuguese. We are only concerned with our English language. So there are 14 punctuation marks used in the English language. You would expect in the exam to put these punctuation marks at the end of certain statements. So you must know their purpose and their functions. There are 14 of them. Okay. And then active and passive voice. For those who are taking Module 1, I'm sure you came across this topic as well. Now in the active voice, the subject of a sentence performs an action, that is the verb, on an object. For example, the elephant destroyed the fence. The elephant is the subject performing the action of destroying the fence. The fence is the object. The elephant, subject. That is the active voice. Now, if you change the same sentence in the passive, now the fence, which is the object in the active voice, becomes the subject in the passive voice. You say the fence was destroyed by the elephant. Now, in most cases, you you might come across, you might be expected to change the verbs. He bought a car. A car was bought by him. The elephant destroyed the fence. The fence was destroyed by the elephant. In most cases, the verbs will be changed. They might be changed so that everything makes sense. Just one more time. In the active voice, the subject of a sentence performs an action on an object. And then in the passive voice, the subject, which is the noun, is acted upon by the object. We have examples as shown. And then simile and metaphor is said again in Module 1. Simile and metaphor, they are the most common figures of speech in literature. So many writers, they opt to use simile and metaphor. A simile is a figure of speech. A metaphor is also a figure of speech. Now the difference is that when you use simile, you use words like and as cold as ice, as brave as lion, as black as coal. As brave as a lion, as black as coal. When you use words like and as, you are using simile. Does not depend, does not matter which words you are comparing. As long as you use the words and as, that is, you are using simile. And then metaphor, on the other hand, metaphor is also a figure of speech used in comparing two things directly, but do not use words such as like or as. For example, she is an angel, he is a lion, he is a pig. When you compare things, two or more things directly, that is called a metaphor. And then figures of speech. I said a figure of speech is a word or phrase that possesses a separate meaning from its literal definition. Now, apart from simile and metaphor, other types of figures of speech include alliteration, hyperbole, or anything that shows exaggeration or which provides a dramatic effect in any piece of writing. That is a figure of speech. In the exam, you will be told to identify figures of speech in a text, identify the figures of speech in so many statements or sentences. You must be able to do that. Okay. And then our presentation ends here. Let's go back to the content again. I said the difference there, we have the types of sentences, numerals, and figures of speech, and punctuations. Otherwise, Module 1 and 2, they are more or less the same. Good luck for your exam. Thank you.